One of the remarkable things is that Arthur talks about wanting to die facing the sunset, and actually he dies facing a kind of sunset or sunrise. And so it's kind of like husn al-khitam, right? The good ending. He died exactly how he wanted to die. Peace and love, and welcome to another episode of Real Imagination, where we discuss culture, literature, film, music, and video games through the lens of Islamic metaphysics, specifically the teachings of the greatest master of Sufism, Ibn Arabi. In the first episode, we took a look at J.R.R. Tolkien's masterpiece, Lord of the Rings, through some motifs and concepts through Ibn Arabi's teachings. And for the second episode, I would like to switch things up and look at one of my favorite video games of all time, the Western classic Red Dead Redemption 2 through the lens and the teachings of Ibn Arabi. And Red Dead Redemption 2, of course, takes place at the end of the 19th century, and it follows the Dutch van der Linde gang, specifically the protagonist, Arthur Morgan, who is part of this gang that is at the end of the era of the Wild Wild West and the beginning of the era of the law and order in America, as it tries to maneuver in the American mainland, hopefully to escape to Tahiti. But then they pick up this mole who is the main antagonist in the story, Micah, and Micah actually conspires with the federal authorities. And the ending of the first part of the story, which is the majority of the story, is that Arthur Morgan is sacrificed. He dies as a result also of a sickness, which he picks up as a result of collecting debt for the gang. He contracts tuberculosis from one of the people who owns debt for the Dutch van der Linde gang. And throughout the story, we begin to see Arthur's sickness manifest through coughing and blood, and then he gets dizzy, and eventually he goes to the doctor in the city of Saint Denis, and he discovers that he's actually dying from tuberculosis. And as Arthur goes through this change of this kind of mortal sickness, of course, the player has the choice playing either the high honors or the low honors. And if you do play the high honors, you begin to experience this kind of spiritual, psychological change that Arthur goes through, not only in terms of his mortal sickness, but he also comes to terms with his mistakes and his faults and his sins as a human being. Eventually, towards the end of his chapter, he sacrifices himself to save his friend, John Marston, who would end up taking the rest of the story, where John actually avenges Arthur's death by finding the hideout of Micah and killing him, and then sets up the story for the original Red Dead Redemption. I wanted to look at a few key points in Red Dead Redemption 2 through the lens of Ibn Arabi's teachings. The first major idea that is, I think, really important in Red Dead Redemption 2 is this concept of the Wild Wild West and the end of an era. One of the things that Ibn Arabi talks about is that God's manifestations never remain the same. There is no repetition in creation. If you remain with manifestation and you're not aware of the one who is manifesting through these waves on top of the ocean of time, then it will be very difficult for you to move on in life. And I think that this is one of the things that was Dutch van der Linde's main mistake, and also eventually Arthur's mistake, is that they were both too attached to an old age of the Wild Wild West and honor among gangs and taking care of one another. And in many ways, Micah is not only the antagonist, but he also represents this new era and this new change in conspiring with the federal authorities. And so we find this one of the most beautiful ways in which you can actually translate and understand abstract metaphysics of the kind that Ibn Arabi is talking about with divine manifestations, is precisely through storytelling, and a story like Red Dead Redemption 2, where it's all about this detailed storytelling, where you begin to see how this nostalgia for the past, and how detrimental it is in a changing era.